Unlike most other sports, in which teammates work together and establish a mutual understanding to achieve collective success, F1 drivers are out for themselves, and their teammates are the first, if not the only, obstacle to personal triumph. They are a competitive bunch, and some will stop at nothing to prove they are the best. That being said, we have picked out some of the famous Formula 1 teammate rivalries to highlight in this video. Why F1 teammates are always at war. Formula 1 is at its best when two drivers fight head-to-head, even more so when those drivers battle within the confines of the same team. This concept, I mean the idea of a team being split in two and sometimes rupturing from within, has been at the root of the most iconic rivalries in the sport's history. Now, let's talk about the biggest in-team feuds in F1 history, many of which revolve around the same themes: clashes of personality, struggle for supremacy, and, quite often, a certain Mr. Prost. Starting off the list, we have Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost at McLaren. Ayrton Senna's feud with Alain Prost remains not only one of the greatest rivalries in the history of Formula 1, but one of the fiercest battles in sport. Having decided Lotus was no longer strong enough to compete for world championships at the end of 1987, Senna moved to McLaren, where Alain Prost was the undisputed #1 after winning 2 titles for the team in 1985 and 1986. Senna, though, was immediately on the pace, and at just his 3rd event for McLaren, he produced what many to believe to be the greatest qualifying lap in F1 history, beating Prost to the pole by almost 1.5 seconds behind the wheel of the most dominant car in history, the MP44. Keen to make amends the following year, Prost did everything in his power to wrestle back the world championship, and it all came to a head at the championship decider at Suzuka. Senna needed to win to keep his title hopes alive, and late in the race, he made his own move down the inside of his teammate at the final chicane. It was a bold attempt, and the pair came together when Prost closed the door. But that wasn't the end of the drama. The damage ruled the Frenchman out of the race, but Senna continued after being helped on his way by the marshals. And after pitting to repair his broken wing, he caught and passed Alessandro Nannini for what appeared to be an epic race victory. But his joy was cut short when he was disqualified after the race for rejoining the track illegally, meaning Prost won the championship with a round to spare. It remains one of the most controversial incidents in the sport's history, and it brought Prost's time at McLaren to an end as the two drivers could no longer stand the sight of each other, let alone work together. Next is the rivalry between Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso at McLaren, just 2 months after the close of his first title-winning season with Renault in 2005. Fernando Alonso signed a deal to join McLaren in 2007, and while Alonso spent the 2006 season scrapping with Michael Schumacher en route to his 2nd consecutive crown, a young British kid was busy conquering all before him in GP2. That kid was Lewis Hamilton, who, after impressing McLaren in testing at Silverstone that September, became the shock choice to partner Alonso in 2007. It didn't take long for things to turn sour between these two feisty racers. Alonso was the defending 2-time world champion, so he was perhaps taken aback by the immediate threat posed by his rookie teammate. The tension really started to mount when Hamilton got the better of Alonso at the Canadian Grand Prix, and just 1 race later, the Spaniard raised his fist in frustration to his team on the pit wall after losing out to the youngster for the 2nd successive race at the US GP. However, the most infamous incident came at a dramatic qualifying session for the Hungarian GP. After feeling aggrieved that his teammate hadn't followed orders, Alonso sought immediate retaliation and blocked Hamilton in the pits ahead of their final qualifying runs. As a result, the Brit was unable to set a time, and Alonso picked up a 5-place grid penalty for his actions. But it didn't stop there. The incident sparked a chain of events that led to McLaren's disqualification from that year's Constructors' Championship, as well as a $100 million fine after what is now known as the Spygate scandal. The next rivalry we will look into is that of Sebastian Vettel and Mark Webber at Red Bull. The rivalry between Sebastian Vettel and Mark Webber began over a year before they became teammates at Red Bull Racing, when they collided behind the safety car at the wet 2007 Japanese Grand Prix, an afternoon when both drivers stood a strong chance of claiming a maiden win. Webber made his feelings abundantly clear in the immediate aftermath of that incident, but any hard feelings were put to one side when Vettel graduated to Red Bull in 2009, when the pair won 6 Grand Prix between them, including 4 1-2 finishes to secure a comfortable 2nd place in the constructors' standings. They were content enough to serve the team throughout 2009, but Vettel and Webber were very much out for themselves as Red Bull produced the fastest car on the grid for 2010. After winning with ease in Spain and Monaco, Webber was on course for his 3rd victory in succession in the Turkish GP when Vettel, having nudged slightly ahead of the Australian on the back straight, edged across the track and made contact with Webber, eliminating the German on the spot. Their relationship was never the same again and slumped to another low in qualifying at Silverstone, where the team removed an updated front wing from Webber's car and gave it to Vettel. Next up, Alain Prost and Nigel Mansell at Ferrari. Despite a patchy reliability record, Nigel Mansell established himself as Ferrari's team leader in 1989, recording 2 victories, reaching the podium in every race he finished, and scoring 27 more points than teammate Gerhard Berger. The British driver, though, was the biggest victim of the Ayrton Senna-Alain Prost war, and when McLaren signed Berger for 1990, Mansell was the one who had to put up with Prost a newly crowned 3-time world champion. The Frenchman was given number 1 status. Consequently, Mansell handled it poorly. It was quite a disappointment for him, as he came within touching distance of the title in 1986 and 1987. He was still a multiple race winner though. Prost enjoyed a strong start to 1990, winning in Senna's backyard in Brazil and embarking upon a run of 3 consecutive victories at the mid-season stage. The last race of that run, at Silverstone, marked the final straw for Mansell, as he discovered that Prost made the team swap cars without his knowledge, with the Briton announcing his retirement that weekend. At Estoril, Mansell edged his teammate toward the pit wall off the start line, forcing Prost to lose positions and, indeed, points in his title battle with Senna, which ended at the first corner in Japan. Mansell retracted his decision to retire, and he returned to Williams the following year. He did everything to avoid being partnered with Prost again, passing up the opportunity to defend his 1992 title by fleeing to IndyCar for 1993. Alan Jones and Carlos Reutemann at Williams. Williams drivers Alan Jones and Carlos Reutemann won a combined total of 6 races in 1980, as the latter sealed his only title, and the team secured their first constructors title, having scored almost twice as many points as the second-place Ligier. At that point, the Jones-Reutemann alliance was one of the most productive partnerships as the former chased success, and the latter perfected the backup role, scoring regular podiums and winning when Jones failed at Monaco in 1980. It was a willingness to have his own day in the sun. However, that tore the relationship apart, as Reutemann ignored team orders to win in the second round of the 1981 season in Brazil. The loss of the team's clear structure proved costly, as Reutemann and Jones fought between themselves, taking points away from each other. This allowed the famously crafty and cunning Nelson Piquet to take the 1981 title by a point from Reutemann, with Jones a further 3 points behind, despite returning to winning ways at the final race of the season at Las Vegas. Wrapping it up, we have James Hunt and Jochen Mass at McLaren. 2 weeks after winning at Watkins Glen, Hunt had an exclusive scrap with Mario Andretti as the pair disappeared into the distance. Little more than 20 laps from the checkered flag, the front-runners had lapped every driver apart from Jochen Mass, Hunt's McLaren teammate. In his efforts to pass Mass, Andretti ran wide and conceded the lead to Hunt, who then collided with Hermann the German, as Hunt affectionately refers to Mass, as he tried to get by and was eliminated from the race. Upon climbing from the cockpit, the reigning world champion walked in the direction of the track and, in the heat of the moment, punched a marshal above, for which he was later fined. Hunt continued to make no effort to conceal his frustration, however, shaking his fist at Mass every time his teammate drove by as he returned to the pits. That concludes today's video. If you have found it helpful, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Until then, goodbye.